Welcome to BISP solution. In our series, we are here to learn about the ARCS APM tool of Oracle. So, our today's topic of gaining knowledge is of transaction matching. So today we will be taking off the transaction matching module, transaction matching module of Oracle, ARCS. So under this, this transaction till date we have gone through the basically the most common one, the reconciliation compliance module. But the transaction matching is the second module in which a large volume of transactions were taken care of. A reconciliation is done for a large volume of transactions. So if we talk about we will just take a quick look of the theoretical part of this transaction matching. So generally for a organization, in addition to comparing the balances, uh, organizations they also like to match the transaction that form the balances. That is the uh, in the balance comparison or in the reconciliation compliance model, we basically reconcile the balances to balances of one ledger to of another. But the transactions which are forming that balance, the reconciliation of that transaction were being done in the transaction matching module. So the here transaction matching module is handy to simplify the complex reconciliation having large volume of transaction and line items. So when there are the large number of, so similarly to arrive at a balances, we may have a very large number of transaction and a line item. So the reconciliation of this line item is being done in transaction matching. It does the thorough review of the accounts of ledger. So naturally when it go do the analysis of each and every transaction and the line item, a thorough review is being done of a particular ledgers or the sub ledgers. So for example, cash and bank, suspense and clearing account, credit card receivables are some of the most common uh, reconciliation which is being performed. And the common steps involved here are the load transactions from more than one sources, that is the similar that two of compliance, the reconciliation compliance need to upload the transaction from sources, more than one sources. We need to run the Automatch process, match the transaction using the predefined rules. So the matching is done basis the rules which we define predefined in the for transaction matching. And this identifies the variances and the exceptions. So those who fit within the rules are being matched, are they being reconciled, and those and the other transactions were identified they are the variances and exceptions. So and for that we provide the reasons why they have been there has been a variances or exceptions occurred. So the in addition to this the transaction in a additional transaction matching can also be used for non-balance sheet items. So basically the reconciliation is being performed for mostly for the balance sheet items. That is bank reconciliation, AP and AR and intercompany. But in addition to that, it can handle other non-balance sheet elements also, such as reimbursement or the stock settlements. Maybe employee may be having a reimbursement every month to a large number of employees, so that data can also be reconciled with the help of transaction matching. This is basically the most the steps involved in it. In load data, load through pre-mapped file load through data management, and run Automatch. We need to run the Automatch function here. Matches data transaction according to predefined rules, which we have just seen here. And in confirm and basis that it gives us the list of those which are not being matched and those have been matched. So those which have been matched, they have been categorized as confirm matched. No further action is needed. That is, they have been reconciled. And in the suggested match, user need to either confirm or discard the match. And for the remaining transaction, it gives its suggestions, different suggestions, that these transactions may be, there may be some minor difference in it. So for that, it provides a suggestion. And in the third one is the create manual matches. Though basis the suggested matches, we need to we can have create a manual matches for them. Okay. So after working on suggested match, need to review the balance and outstanding transaction to match them. That is, we can we can match them manually. So the specific steps involved in it, we have to create a match type and create format and define profile. So likewise in the compliance reconciliation compliance, we start with creating format and defining profile and then doing the reconciliation. But for a transaction matching, a one additional steps is involved. Before creating format, we need to create a match type in which we define all the rules and create the systems and so define the source system and the subsystems, which we will see in this session. So this is basically the two method balance comparison. So the methods involved in the methods involved in this transaction matching. So we have this balance comparison with transaction matching. Then we have account analysis with transaction matching and transaction matching only. So transaction matching can only be done for comparing balances as well as for reconciling the transactions, and also the account analysis with transaction matching, and or alternatively in the third method we can just match the transactions only. There is no balances or account analysis involved in that. So this is basically the transaction matching method involved. Okay, now we will just go and create the directly led into the profile, and we'll try to understand it with the help of an practical example. So as we said, in this we have to first create a format for this. Need to create a match type for it. So to create this match type, we will have to go from this navigator to under application. We have this match types, and we will create a. These are basically the already available match types. So we will just create our new one for understanding. So we have to click on this new one and need to define the name of this. Under properties, we have to define the name of this match type. So I will just take the help of a match type 2. Okay. Okay, I will just, what I will do this a underscore match type test2. Okay. We will give a name to it, a similar name to it. Description, the status here, it is pending. It will remain pending till we approve it. So it will come as we have only one option here, we will get the another option of approved when we will define all the properties here. So just go and save this one. So this is the first type which we have concluded. Then we come to this data sources. If we go by our slide, then we have defined the properties. Now we have to define the data source. This is the data source, which is an important one. in which, so as we have been having two sources, uh, source system is subsystem, sub source system. So we will just go and create that data source from where we will get the data. So click on this and we will create a new data source. Under the properties, we have to provide a new data source. Okay, so I will just give a source test 2. Okay, it will be as a source system test 2. Uh, Give the name, repeat the name of it. We can alternately give some ID to it in alphanumeric manner. So this is our source system. So we will take this as source system and allow transaction to be deleted as OK, and we will just first save it. Now we got this option data source attribute and we got this plus symbol. So under this we have to define this data source attribute. So what is our data source? Our data source here is basically the source file, our source file, this CSV file. I will just close this one, and this is our source file, subsystem file. I do have one source file also, sorry, source file. Okay, this is our source file, and in the source file we have these options. This we have the different column in it. We have date, invoice, location, currency code, customer ID, transaction ID, amount, and this one is the paid one, just for our reference purpose. And in the subsource subsystem, we'll just make it as green so that we can identify. And under the subsystem with which we are going to compare, we have this transaction ID, date, invoice number, currency code, transaction ID, amount, and balance. So we will just compare this one. So to create a match type in our application, we have to define this, all these attributes, means all this column into our application under this property tab, under this data source attribute. Okay, so to create that, we will just go and create one by one. So by clicking on this plus symbol, this is date, just define it as date. So we have to keep in mind that the pattern in which the date is written in the CSV file must be rewrite in the application itself, in the attribute details also. So it will be a date type, and make it as make it as accounting date and a required one. So accounting date, we have to, for all the attributes, we have to define two things. We have to define one attribute as our accounting date, which is compulsory, and the other one is a balancing attribute, which is another compulsory. So the accounting dates, as the name suggests, so we can make the date type as our accounting date. So just go and save this one. Now these attribute have been created. So what we are doing, we are basically designing a format in the property tab for our CSV file. So we have this ID is date, name is date, type is here is date. Whether it is a key attribute, no. Whether it is required, yes. Then is there any calculation involved? We have not selected this one. Accounting date is there. Balancing attribute, allow edit, and the other options. So we have created the first column here. Then we will create the second one, invoice number. So we are designing basically a format for this with the help of these attributes. Column, it will be a number, and we will make it as required. Means required here means those columns which are available in our CSV file are to be make it as required, and we will make required to those attributes which are compulsory, which are necessarily required for the comparison. As date is required, invoice number is required, so we have made that those attribute as required. Then we have this location. We will just ignore this one location, and because location is not required, then we have this currency code, then we will just make it as required also. Create the third attribute, currency code. Currency code, so what type of it is? It is of text, so make it as text, and we will make it as required and just save it. Now it has created our third data source attribute. Be remembered, it is data source attributes. Click on this plus symbol, then we have the customer ID. Just customer ID, it will be an alphanumeric, so make it as text, make it as required and save it. Then we will create the third one as transaction ID. Name is transaction ID, it will be and number, and we will not make it as required, so just we will just keep it as a and save. Now the important one is the amount. As in the property tab, we have to define one accounting date and the balancing attribute. So as we have already defined the accounting date as our balancing accounting date as our date, now the balancing attribute is required. So the balancing attribute will be made to an amount only. We cannot make date as our balancing attribute. So it will be a number and it will be required and this balancing attribute. So if I change this to list, the balancing attribute will not be enabled, so it will be enabled only for the amount, this one, and just go and save this. So what we have done, we have created a format in which as per our CSV file, in which the data will be inputted. This column is basically the optional one. This reconciliation ID is for the profile which we are going to create. So this is for our internal purpose. So this is nothing to do with the CSV file. It will not be available in the ledger which is provided by the customer or by the client. So this is, we have to the additional field column which we have to add in our CSV file. So we will define this file, this reconciliation ID. Basis this reconciliation ID, we will create a profile, and in that profile we will attach this format and we'll do the match process. So we have defined the properties for the source system. We have defined the attribute for the source system. Now we will create another source system, another one. So this is our new data source, and we will give a name it as a source system is there. Then we will define, make it as subsystem. Okay, control V. Subsystem 2. So use in balance report as subsystem, allow transaction to be deleted and split, and save it. So I will just save this one. Now similarly we have to create the data source attribute for our subsystem file also. So this is our subsystem file. Basis this, we will create the attribute. So the attributes will remain more or less same for both system, for source and the subsystem, because we have been going to reconcile subsystem and the source system. So when that when the details will be same, then only we will be able to compare it. So we will just go and create the first one as date in subsystem. Subsystem, make it as date. We will just make it as accounting date, and it is required one. Then the second one is our invoice number. We do have the invoice number in our source system also, because basis this the reconciliation, so it will match the column invoice number of source versus invoice number of subsystem, and will match the transactions. So make it as required and save it. The third one, the currency code. We have this currency code here. So currency will be in numbers, text. So make it as text and make it as required, because we may be having a different currency for different transactions. Then we have this transaction ID. Make it as and number, and just make it as, just save it. Then we have this amount, the balancing attribute for our source system, subsystem. Make it as subsystem amount. It will be a number, and make it as balancing attribute. If I save it, it gives us a message. The data source attribute configured as balancing attribute has to be a required one. That is, if we make anything, any attribute as balancing attribute, it must be a required one. So I just tick this one. So now we have created the system, the source system and the subsystem attributes in our data sources for uploading the file. So I will just create one filter for it in subsystem. And in the subsystem, now we have these two options here, properties and filter. In properties, we have defined all the data source attributes and created the different attributes required for our reconciliation purpose as per our CSV file. But we do have also one filters. So when the reconciliation process is kicked off, what the application will do, the application will first filter those transactions which we have defined here in this data source, and the balancing data source and the balance and the transaction which remain, which doesn't fit in our filter condition, those will be taken care of by the match process, which will define here in the transaction types. So under filters, we will just create a new filter in it. So what will be the name? 500 USD filter, and we need to create a condition. So amount which is greater than 500 will be filter, sorry, I just edit it, will be filter. And we will create another condition here, and currency code is equal to USD. Okay, so we have created one filter. Those transactions which are greater than 500 will be filtered automatically, and those who are having the currency as USD. So we have created this filter. So the system or the application will first filter out those transactions, and then it will come to the third tab, that is the of transaction types. So under this transaction types, we used to define, so this is the transaction types. We used to define or to create uh, the different types of the transactions which are involved. If there has been any variance or the exceptions to, we used to with the help of this transaction type, we categorize them uh, in a proper manner, and in the fourth one, in the match process, we define the rules. So under the transaction types, what we are going to do, we are going to define the different categories under which those exception is to be identified or to be categorized or to be, they have to be assigned. So we will just go here and make it as other. So I already have this rule one. Okay. So it is defining as allow posting of adjustment to source system and as well as to subsystem also. And then we have this allow adjustment type manual match rule also. Okay. Then we have these are the most common attributes. When we will define this transaction or the exception, we will get the format in this of these three line items: ID, name, and description. And we can additionally create some more. So for existing one, just to make a debit amount and save it. So when we will provide the reasons or the exceptions of transaction, so it will define the reasons in this format: ID, name, description, debit amount. Okay. And we can also have the approved by. Okay. Alternatively, we can also create the new attributes also here, adjustment type attributes. So these are the adjustment. This is the first adjustment which is available by default. Just go and save this one. Now we will create another new transaction type, this one, and we will name it as currency flux. It is basically FLUX. Means those transactions which have not been matched due to currency fluctuation, due to currency exchange difference, we will adjust them into this currency flux category attribute. So source system, subsystem, we will just go and save this one. Once we save, we get all these adjustment type attributes, and just click new one we can create. Say adjustment type, make it as adjustment. Okay, this will be in this category we will be defined, and we will just go and close this one. Okay, actually I have closed that one, so I will just go and a underscore match type toast. This one, this one. So under this we have created these properties. We have created two data source. We have defined the transaction types in which we are going to currency flux. We have this is the adjustment type which we have. Okay, then we have to move on to the next tab. This is the next tab. This is the match process. Properties. So under this we will be defining the properties and creating the rules for it. Under this properties rule, so we will just go and create I will just go and create the, if I already have. So we will just create a match type test, match type test. Number of data source, they are two. We can have one or two. So we will be having two data source, and source system and the subsystem. Match the latest accounting and just save it. Okay. Now when we save this, we get the default attribute mapping and bucket attribute mapping and this rules tab, this one. So under this rules we will be configuring different rules for reconciling our different transaction. So either we can create a manual match rule, for which we need to configure an auto match rules here. So we will just go and create the rule one by one. So what are the different rule types? We have this type of rule types: one to one, one to many, many to one, and many to many. So we will just create one to one. So we will just remake it as one to one rule type. Okay, it will be like this. R1, we will give it the name as one to one. So it will be one to one, and match status will be confirm, suggested, confirm, etc. So we will just make it as confirm and save this one. When we save this, we get this rule conditions enabled here. So under this real connection, we have to define the for reconciliation purpose and from source versus subsystem. So under this source, we have defined amount, invoice number, date are those. So we have to provide a match type for this. So by default, when we create any rule, so this is being enabled by default. So what it says, if the source system match amount matches with subsystem amount matches exactly, then reconcile it. Okay, then we will just create the another one. When we create this plus symbol, we have to choose the option. So just make go and date of source system matches exactly with the date of subsystem. Just go and reconcile it, and just so we have to just click on this save to save this rule. Then under the third rule, we will create if the invoice number matches exactly with invoice number of subsystem, just go and reconcile it, match the transaction. So these are basically the most common three attributes which needs to be reconciled when a reconciliation is performed: the date, amount, and the invoice number. If the date matches, there may be some difference. If the date matches exactly along with the invoice number and the amount, so means that transaction is reconciled. Okay, so we have create this rule one to one, and save this one and close this one. So we have created one rule here. We will create some other rules also. So we will give it the name as R2 and 1 to 1 with tolerance in amount. With tolerance in amount. So what we are saying here, uh, it will be one to one. One transaction will be matched with one transaction. But if there is an tolerance, if there is a difference of amount, then it should match. So the transaction. So in the rule condition, we will define the tolerance amount. How much tolerance is acceptable. So in this, as you see, filter and group, and the rule condition is now enabled, and by default amount is here is enabled as matches exactly. Okay, and it will also be a confirmed one. So okay, now we will just go and make it as suggested match status, because if there has been some difference, so we can just go and suggest them that this can be matched, so it will match the both the transaction. So under the plus matches exactly, you can see matches exactly. So what we have to do, we have to matches exactly rule to matches exactly and matches exactly amount matches. We will do it as tolerance limit, since we are going to provide some tolerance. So I have selected this one as a with tolerance, make it as custom limit. So what will be the custom limit? It will be 200 and 200 plus 200 and minus 200, and just save this one. So what we did, so we have just modified the default amount condition which is available here. So we will just go save, and we'll create the another one, and in the 1 second, if it is matches exactly with the date, just go and reconcile it, match it, save it. Then we will have this third rule, invoice number matches exactly with invoice number, go and save it. So in this, only for the amount we have set tolerance limit, for which we sought some suggestion in it. So just save and close this one. So we have created these two, and alternatively we have to just when we go in with suggested or with the tolerance limit, we get additionally get this tab of adjustment details. So in which, so if there has been some tolerance, naturally if there has been some difference in it, we have to provide that adjustment under which category. So we have to just make it as currency flux. If there has been a difference, so we have to categorize them and under the other category, and just go and save it. Now you can see the attribute which we have created in our transaction type: ID, name, description, debit amount, and approved by. Save. Save here once again and close this one. Now we will create a third rule here. It will be R3. We will name it as R3 and one to many. One to many with tolerance in date. Okay. Date and amount. Okay. And the rule type we will define it as here one to many. So here the one transaction of source will be matched with many transaction of subsystem, and it matches our predefined rules, it will match it. So and make it as suggested. So it has been suggested, it is active, and just first save it. Okay, under the rule condition, so the under the amount matches exactly with subsystem, but we have given some tolerance, so we will just go and change this one, some custom limit, make it as 100 and save it. We will create the another rule condition here, in which we will select date matches with tolerance with subsystem date, custom limit. So we will give here as start date, so we have to input here as minus, so minus 10 and plus 10 days, it will consider as a tolerance limit for a for date. Save it and save. Okay, it has saved. Now we will create the third for the invoice one. Invoice number matches exactly. If the invoice number matches exactly and with some tolerance of in amount and date, it will match our transaction. Okay, and just save this one. Now as we have uses the word suggested here, match with tolerance, the adjustment detail tab is enabled here. So just go here and select this one. So we will give this as subsystem. Under the subsystem we have this attributes which we have created. So just go and select the transaction type, make it as other also or keep it as currency flux. So it will categorize the adjustment in the currency flux transaction type. Just save it once again and close. Okay, now we have created the three rules for it, for matching our transaction. And also we can alternatively we can create the configure the same with the help of manual match rules. And in the third type, general attribute, which is not of much use, so we will just ignore this type and enter the match type. So what we did, we created a match type here. The second is the data source. We have defined the data source, means our CSV files, both the CSV file. Okay, then the third one is the match, the transaction types, in which if there is any adjustment we need to make, where we are going to categorize those adjustments. So we have created two. The default adjustment is already available here, we have just rename it. And the other one is the currency flux we can add as per our need. Then in the fourth tab we have created the rules for matching these transactions for the subsystem and the source system. Make it as rules: one to one, one to many, one to one with tolerance amount, and one to many with tolerance amount. So one to one here it will exactly match, will reconcile one transaction of source with one transaction of subsystem, and if meet that condition, matches the amount, date and invoice number, so it will match it. And in the second rule, if something is left, if something is not being captured, in the rule 1, then we have this two rule. Second rule we have created one to one with tolerance limit. So if there is an tolerance limit of say 200 or 100 as we define, so it will match the transaction. And in the third one we have created one to many, so the one transaction will be matched with the many transactions which of subsystem with some tolerance of date and amount. So we will just go and close this one. This is the the match type which we have created, but you can see that it's pending, its status is pending. So we have to make it as approved. Earlier it was not coming, so now when we have defined all the attributes and properties, it will become approved. Save and close this one, because when this status is approved, we will be able to use this match type in our profile, in our format. So we have created the match type here. So we have just completed this exercise, this first step. We have to create a format and define a profile for it. Okay, now we will just so the creation of profile and the format is similar to as that of reconciliation compliance. So under the configuration we have this format tab, and we will create a new format for it. So under the plus symbol we will go and create a new format for our reconciliation purpose. Okay, just a match type, a match type test to format. A format match type test. So it will come here, match type, or make it as okay, just it will leave it. Under the method we will just using the transaction matching only, and the what will be the match type. Now you can see we have to define the match type here. The match type which we have created here is a match type test 2. the match type which we have created here. So we have to assign this or allow this match type into, have to attach this match type into the format. So just we can have this instructions, attribute and history tab, and just save and close. So we have created this. This is our match format, match type test2. Okay. So based on the format, we have to create a profile. So for creating profile, we have to keep in remember that we have to create the profile with this need to create the CSV file with this profile segment. So I will just go and rename it webinar, make it as 10031, the source system, and we will just rename it 31. Replace all. This is our source file, and similarly for the for the subsystem file, we will create another file. Just rename it 31 and just update the profile segment name. So under the profile, we are in the profile segment. Just create a new profile for it. It is 1001031. A test match type profile 2. Okay. Process balance sheet, make it as medium. Account type as balance sheet. Take it as other asset. Normal balance is generally debit. Assign the organizational unit South America, and we will choose the format. So our format here is a format, match type test2. It is transaction matching only. Just okay. Now instructions, then we have this workflow. Go and click this one. We will define one user, currency. We have to define so this is the default one, this USD functional currency, and go and save this one. So this is our profile which we have created here. So now we have created profile format, and we have to upload the balances in it. So for uploading the balances in the profile, we have to take the help of job. Under job, we will go and apply the upload the uh, data into this transaction matching. But while for the reconciliation compliances, we use with the through period, we upload the data balances. So under this, from the action, we will just import those transactions. So it is asking us for the match type. So what is our match type? It is match type test2 will be associated. It is saying only match type approved associated transaction are listed. So those which are been approved state will be taken. That's why we have approved from change the status from pending to approved of that match type which we have created. Run auto match? No. Date format will remain same. Under the data source, we will go and select the file. Data source, it is 1001031. Okay. And also under the select source, subsource, submit it. job submitted successfully. Let's go and refresh it. We found some error in it. Import file does not have any records to process. Warning at line. The following attributes were not attribute. Location is, oh my god. So location is required here because that has been okay. Sorry. Because this is one of the attribute which we have created, which we have not created in our file, in our match type. This is the location which we have not been able to create. So we will just add this one into our IC. Just go and click this one. Just save this one. And also for the subsource. Okay, we have to, I think we have to delete this one location from the subsource. Subsource and source. Okay, we will delete this one also from the subsource, from the subsystem, and also from the system. I think it is getting confusing me. So this is a 10031. We don't have this location. Under the 31 subsystem, we have this one. Let's go and try once again. Okay, so under the match type, we will have to just review once. Invoice number transaction is there. Okay, under the subsystem, invoice number amount, transaction ID is there. Then why it is giving us the error? Match type test 2. Okay, it is approved under the match type, under the job. Import transaction, data source, so we will just create one only. Submitted, job submitted successfully. Just refresh it. The following attributes in data source: a data source, balance, error at line number 1, attribute location is required. Import file does not have any record to process. This one maybe we may be taking some other Mm, location is file import file does not have any records to process 00. Okay, so we will just go and use the another file which we have already created here. Okay, 100 and location. We will just go and change the 31, and similarly for the subsystem also, subsource, because this has already been created by me but it is giving some error in it, so we will just use our earlier file. Now we will again go to this job, and from action just import transaction or match type is same, match type test2, run Automatch no, data source this one, and the subsource submit. Now you can see that it has been succeed. It has given us some, there is some error with this, the format error. So under the match type we have uploaded the imported the balances. So under profile, so we don't have to do the reconciliation for it, so it will be automatically be being used in the, we can do that through matching process. So this is our profile. Now you can see 1003031, in which unmatched transaction are 8 and source system it is 8, and unmatched transaction counting here it is 14. So we will just go here and see the details. So it is giving us the total, how much of them are unmatched and how much them are matched. So we will just go and see the details of it. You can see it is 224,950, it is 224,950, and under the match type we can just go and see what are those adjustment, and with adjustment and without adjustment, the transaction which have been reconciled with adjustment. So we can see this is the suggested matches, and under the third tab unmatched transaction, it is giving us the list of the total transaction which have been matched here. So basis this we can just go and match this one, 23355 of the so of subsystem. We can just go here and select this 21 and this one and this one and match with adjustment. What it will do, it will match for us. Similarly we can do the same for other transactions also. This one and this one, and for 7956 match. Now it is reducing our balances and the number of transactions, and you can see where we have the transaction with which rule we have matched those transactions. So the match ID, this one is the match ID, how much is the rule which is being applied here, and we can check the details here also. It is 4 and 10. Now the amount has received to 199,427 and the no balance is 424. It is cancel. Under the matches, it is a the rule name which we have applied. So since we have manually rule matched it, so it is giving us a manual match rule. this one, the transactions have been reduced from 14 to 10 and from 5 to 4, 6 to 4, sorry. So this is how we can just the transaction matching method work here. So as there seems that the auto rule match has not worked here, that's why we have to do it as a manually. But when it works, so it will automatically filter all those transactions and match, only show only those transactions which are unmatched with some tolerance or with some suggestion. So it gives us the list of that. So as we are already running out of time, so we will just conclude our session here, and we'll do another transaction matching in our coming session. So with this we conclude our today's session, and we'll meet again with some new topic. And for any questions or queries, you can always reach out to us at support@bispsolutions.com, and you can also refer our YouTube channel. So till then, so it's time to say goodbye, and thank you.